Dr. Fauci says it's not safe to reopen till daily case counts drop to 10,000. We're over 60 right now. And meanwhile, big teacher unions are a no-go on opening until teachers get vaccinated. Does this make sense? It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday night Rob Nelson Live show. I'm streaming to you from Los Angeles in our super cool studios where my mic just went visible and invisible, just like that, the power of the green screen. And you're all over the place, all over the country, all over the world, on whatever social platform you happen to like best until you're canceled. All right, want your interaction, want your feedback. If I don't get to your comments, we'll pick them up a little later on, but Crafty, my producer, always puts them up so everybody can see what everybody else is saying. Let's jump right in. COVID is the gift that just keeps on giving. No, it's a joke. I know you have to be able to make some jokes. The pandemic, a year ago when the pandemic started in March, that was the last time the U.S. had 10,000 new cases a day. And that was a lot at the time, March 22nd. Well, just the other day, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who, again, I think the guy keeps moving the goalposts, and I'm not sure who came along and made Dr. Fauci God of all this stuff. Don't get me wrong. I respect the guy. He is a leading person in his field, and he has every right to be a leading voice in this health pandemic and when it comes to what to do and not to do. But literally, it's like he became the Pope, like a direct line to the God of all viruses. And I think sometimes the guy literally just thinks in terms of science and in terms of the health side, which is what he should do. But he himself has acknowledged there's another side to this, which is all the things that happen to everybody's lives who are shut down because of the health side. And he once said a long time ago, I hope that my over precaution is an over precaution. I hope I go too far, then I've done my job. But there's real damage that happens on the other side of that job. So what we're seeing is states are opening up. I mean, certainly states like Texas and Florida especially was open for a while. But in the last couple weeks, a whole bunch of states have said, we're opening up. And the most recent was Texas. Texas just threw the doors open. No more state mask mandate. 100% businesses can open 100% capacity. Missouri followed suit. Even in states that are run by Democratic governors like Michigan, Governor Whitmer's like, we're going to start expanding. We're going to start moving into stadiums. We're going to start letting people have more capacity in theaters and restaurants. States are like, we are at a breaking point. We need to open up. Here's the problem. Dr. Fauci just said, President Biden called it Neanderthal that Texas did what it did. I'll address that in a second. But Fauci's statement was, we need to wait until we are at 10,000 K. So I understand the need. You want to get back to normality, but you're only going to set yourself back if you just completely push aside the public health guidelines, particularly when we're dealing with anywhere from 55 to 75,000 infections a day in the U.S. Now, clearly mask mandates is one thing, and we can argue the mask mandate issue till we go blue in the face. I think everybody knows masks work. And I think everybody should also know that they only work to a certain extent. Governor Newsom saying, let's double mask. Okay, the science shows double masking doesn't really make much of a difference, like a tiny bit of difference. And that's not coming from some conservative right-wing think tank. The supercomputer in Japan did a major analysis, right? And I wear double masks when I travel on a plane. It's probably more for up here than anything else. So I'm not going to argue whether states should eliminate mask mandates. That became a whole political thing. And I think any common sense person knows it makes sense to wear a mask, at least in certain settings, right? Maybe not everywhere. I see people outside wearing masks by themselves. I don't know what they're thinking. The virus ain't going to drop out of the sky and hit you on the head, I'm riding a horse on a trail. Some guy comes by shirtless, running with a mask and glares at me like, why don't you have a mask on your horse? I'm like, I don't know, because I'm on a trail in the hills by myself on a horse. But that said, the other side of what Fauci was addressing was states loosening their restrictions to allow more capacity, to allow people out, to allow people into restaurants. Governor Newsom, Governor Newsom follows the science. And I only make fun of that because I don't think he really does follow the science. I think he follows the science to the extent that it makes sense for him politically. And now that he's under a recall, suddenly he's like, let's open up. He's like, we're going to have people in the stands for opening day for Dodger Stadium. Well, Dr. Fauci's saying, no, hold on. We need to get down to 10,000 cases a day nationwide before we start doing this. The problem is we're not even close. We're at 65,000, like I just said, 60 to 70,000 a week right now. The last time we were at 10,000 was in March when the pandemic started. California alone has 5,000 new cases a day right now, almost 5,000, 4,655. So California alone has half the amount Anthony Fauci wants for the whole country. Politically, this is becoming a problem for every governor in every state. And economically, financially, mentally, it's becoming a breaking point for people across the country. Democrat, Republican, left, right, center. People are like, how much more do you want us to hold on? And I get the health experts saying longer, just a little longer. But I also get that people are like, we can't hold on much longer. And I don't blame Newsom for wanting to open. I find it kind of hypocritical that he suddenly does it when he's getting a recall effort. But I get it. California is collapsing. I mean, yeah, it's time to let people go back to their lives to some extent. But if you follow the science, Dr. Fauci's probably right. If you really want to make sure this thing stops spreading, get it down to 10. I just don't know that we can ever get it down to that and actually let people live. But here's one area where I think most people can agree we could be making progress, and that's when it comes to schools. The CDC issued a report. They did a study based largely out of a number of schools in Wisconsin, and they found that the community transmission from schools was almost insignificant. They said there is almost no evidence that schools become community spreaders, that it is safe to open up schools. Sally Permer from Duke University Pediatrics and Immunology professor told the Association of American Medical Colleges, the fear that you'd have one infected kid come to school and then you'd have many other kids and teachers and relatives at home get infected, that hasn't happened. So what the science is telling us is that it's safe to open schools. I have a good friend who is an ER doctor, pediatric, so for kids, and was in Manhattan, worked in a big hospital in Manhattan throughout the pandemic. So he witnessed it firsthand at ground zero. And he told me not too long ago, he was like, I wish people got it that kids are safe. This was before the CDC report. He's like, kids are going to be just fine. He's got little kids. He's like, they're going to be fine. For whatever reason, this disease doesn't spread through kids very easily. One, kids don't contract it very easily. Two, they don't spread it very easily. That's a great thing. I mean, it's something like everyone should just be rejoicing about. It's like, thank God. I mean, I hate that this disease kills anybody, right? But if you're going to pick, would you rather it kill people over 75 or people under 16? Obviously, you're going to be like, it's too bad, but thank God this doesn't attack the youngest, most, the future. They're somehow largely immune. They don't spread it very easily. They don't contract it very easily. And they don't overall have very severe consequences. Yes, you'll find an exception. You'll find an example here, there, where it does. But for the most part, they're good. So why aren't schools opening up? Some are, but why is there such resistance to opening up schools? Well, I'll tell you, teachers' unions. And before you go, oh, Rob's going all conservative, because I'm not. I'm not a conservative, by the way. A lot of people out there think I am. Whether it's that I worked for progressives for, my whole life, whether it's worked in the Clinton administration, not progressive, but certainly not conservative. I'm not a conservative, but that doesn't mean I don't have certain ideas that some conservatives might embrace. When it comes to opening schools, though, to me, it's not about conservative or liberal. And when it comes to teachers' unions, it's not about being anti-union or pro-union. Unions served a vital purpose in this country, especially when they started and for years after. They allowed collective bargaining. They allowed people to come together and protect their interests against the corporate powers that would otherwise just crush them. So unions are a good thing, but a good thing can become a bad thing or can become an abused thing. I think when it comes to school unions, you've got a serious problem. The main reason schools aren't opening is the unions. There's two big national unions, the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers. Both of them are adamantly opposed to opening schools, as they've said repeatedly, until schools are safer. Now, first day in office, Joe Biden came out and said, thanks, Cruson. Third world country. All right. I lost my track on that one because when people make the jokes, I sometimes laugh, even though I'm bad at getting them. And Cruzen's a big union guy, so I'm gonna no, thanks, Crafty. Yeah, 1 second, give me 1 second on that. So I just want to set this up that I'm not anti-union at all, but these are very powerful unions, and they have been very clear they want it to be safer before teachers go back into schools. I get that, okay? I'm okay with that. It's like if you want it to be safer before teachers go in, I understand the concern. I understand people wanting that to be the case. So here's the question, right? What's safe enough? On his first day in office, Biden issued an executive order and said, let's evidence-based research what we need. And they need ventilation. They need, they need testing, right? Ventilation, testing, and lots of protective equipment. And that is a good thing. Sidebar, Fort Walton Beach in Florida. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I've been in and out of Florida a lot. I mean, I see people sitting at tables, some wearing masks, some not, like in the same group, right? I feel like Florida is kind of worked in a navigation system where you let people do what they feel comfortable doing. But again, I'm not going to make this about masks. I think masks work. I think we're crazy to think they literally are like your barrier from getting the virus. As long as you have a mask on, you're safe. Not true, right? You wear that mask into, where there's a super infectious disease in a lab, they'd kick you right out. It's like not good enough. And most people aren't wearing super protective masks anyway. Little cloth coverings, not going to do it. But back to teachers. So Biden issued that, but yet most teachers unions have dug in and said, we want teachers to be vaccinated first, right? Okay, Crafty, let's pop those tweets up. We got the teachers unions. So we got the National Federation of Teachers saying, right now there's fear and pain everywhere, and we can only calm those fears if we follow the science and secure the tools and safeguards we need to reopen, said the American Federation of Teachers Union. Well, okay, right? But that's what Biden's saying we do. But they want teachers to be vaccinated. And here's where I have a bit of an issue. And I'm going to dive into the union thing a little bit more and the bigger issue around schools. But here's where I got a real issue. Teachers should be vaccinated first. Okay. First of all, kids don't spread it very easily. Schools are relatively safe, but teachers are essential workers. How come grocery store workers weren't essential? How come all the people that fed you through the pandemic, that kept the grocery stores open, that kept the retail stores open, that allowed everybody who was staying home getting a government check, which you deserve, by the way, the check, I mean, weren't essential? You think grocery stores are well ventilated? You think grocery stores have extensive cleaning and tons of protective gear? No, everyone's just wearing a little mask, both the employees and the people in there. So how come we made it through a year of a pandemic when we're all happy to go get our carry-out food, all happy to go grocery shopping, and yet we never said, let's vaccinate grocery store workers first? Well, I'll tell you why. Because grocery store workers don't count. They're like little guys, little peons on the thing, and they don't have much of a union. Like 1.3% of all grocery store workers are in a union. 36% of all teachers are in a union. The teachers' unions are powerful, so they're like, we're going to ask what we want for our teachers. That's fair in a sense, but again, where were you teachers screaming about giving grocery store workers, vaccinations first? They're the ones feeding us all. I mean, I'm sick of seeing how the little guys, the people who kept everything going, kept getting thrown under the bus. They're like the least essential out there, and yet they were the most essential. So a part of me is like, come on, teachers. We're going to make schools safe. We're going to spend a lot of money to give you protective gear. We're going to ventilate these places. How about you go back and teach? No, you don't wait till you're all vaccinated. You're in a relatively safe environment. But they won't. And the reason they won't, I think, has a lot to do with a sense of entitlement and a powerful union behind it. But that entitlement bothers me because one thing we are doing that's more damaging than anything is we are killing the next generation's ability to grow and to learn. I mean, think of the difficulty for families keeping their kids home, low-income families, trying to make do, trying to figure out how to have their kids homeschooled. And parents can have some responsibility in this, but more affluent families, they do better. They're going to do better having their kids home. The people getting screwed the most are the minority communities. And interestingly enough, Governor Newsom offered a plan to open schools, and in it, all schools by April 1st have to at least open K through 2 and one middle grade school in order to get any kind of funding. And then they have to move to open a bunch more grades in the near future. And the teachers union came out, the head of the teachers union, with a very interesting comment. She called it racist, which blew up on conservative people going, what? It's racist? But let me read what she said, because there's a real value in what she says, and a really interesting, true point. If you condition funding on reopening of schools, that money will only go to white and wealthier and healthier school communities that do not have the transmission rates that low-income black and brown communities do, UTLA President Cecily Meyer Cruz said in a statement. This is a recipe for propagating structural racism, and it is deeply unfair to the students we serve. Okay, here's my point. I don't think she's wrong. I don't think it's propagating racism. I don't go down that path. Everything that happens is racist. But is she right that minority communities are going to get screwed? Absolutely. They're going to be the least able to open. They're going to be the least ready. The transmission is higher in those communities. They won't make it over the line. They won't get funding. Wealthier white school districts will. That is a legitimate concern. It only highlights my bigger concern, which is why we need to open those schools up, and not, again, so instead of being like, well, we won't get funding if we don't open them. Open them up and put your teachers back in school. It's way past time to do it. Now, I think there's a disconnect between a lot of teachers union, teacher school boards, big school district boards, and the average person. I want to play a video that happened in California. A school board was caught on a live mic. They thought they were alone, having their own meeting before they went public, and they got caught on a live mic. One of the teachers, there's a school superintendent and then several of the board members. One of the teachers got busted by parents for going out to a party right after she said we can't open schools. That's the hypocrisy that drives me nuts. You can go to a party with your friends, but you can't open your school, can't go teach. And so she reacts to that. I've taken some pieces of this video and pieced them together. It's edited, but you can watch the whole video yourself. Here's what they said.
People, it's easy to hide behind a screen and put in comments now. But when you're face to face with people, it's a whole different ball game.
It's like, whatever, I wasn't doing anything bad. I honestly don't care about that part. But you know what? Are we alone?
Yeah.
Hey, bitch, if you're gonna call me out, I'm gonna fuck you up. Sorry, that's just me.
And they don't know what we do behind the scenes, and it's really unfortunate that they want to pick on us because they want their babysitters back.
Right. We have the meeting open to the public right now.
Nuh-uh.
That's what Lori just said.
Great.
All right. So, you can laugh, you can groan, you can do whatever. And by the way, in fairness to the school superintendent, she said, we do a lot of work behind the scenes people don't see. And I'll give her credit for that. But that video started, I didn't take things out of order. I just didn't put the whole thing in. Started with the one board member saying, you know what? It's different when you have to face people than what you can say to them on social media. And I'm thinking, well, now you guys just got caught saying in front of people what you wanted to say in private when no one could see you. And when the school superintendent says, they just want their babysitters back. And then they went on to make jokes about them wanting to get their drugs, their pot, dealers to come by. And it was just so dismissive of how parents have got to be feeling. And I'm not saying these school board members aren't dealing with a lot, but that's what they really felt. They all had to resign and the superintendent apologized. And I'm sure they're well-meaning people. Don't get me wrong. But that's what they really felt, this sort of sense of like, F you people. The one that really pissed me off is the one who's like, I'll fuck that bitch up. Like, for calling me out for going to a party. I don't have a problem with you going to a party. I have a problem with you going to a party 3 days after you say you can't go teach class in school because it's not safe. That's the hypocrisy that drives me absolutely crazy. Okay, we're going to take 60 seconds. We got a caller. I'm going to bring him on for 60 seconds and then jump back into where we're going. We got Fort Walton Bleach. Jump on with me.
Oh, I'm on.
Hey
yeah,
there.
I agree with you about the inconsistencies.
What's that?
I'm going to be... No, can't mute that. Okay. But yeah, I agree completely with the inconsistencies. Yeah. And a lot of people, they you get a lot of people that will outright reject the whole issue of the whole virus thing. They say, oh, it's nothing but a hoax. Nobody's dying. It's nothing worse than a flu. It's just your opinion. I get a few coworkers like that. Then you have people, yeah, I take it seriously, and then you see them breaking every single rule systematically, and then they wonder why they got it. I know one time at my workplace, we had like 9 people out all at once.
Right.
And then when you do things like that, people that actually have problems, like, I got my nebulizer here, I got other medicines to help me breathe, other inhalers. This boy's $400 a month. I'm just saying.
Fort Walton Bleach. So real quickly, so are you staying in? Do you go out? Have you stayed in the whole?
I'll put it this way: last year I was in a car for a total of 3 times.
Right.
One of them was to vote.
So you
clearly have. I have to go to work right now, but I stay in my office. I'm isolated, and I have a filter.
And you have some underlying conditions, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. Diabetes?
No, lung disease.
Lung disease. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, I hear this stuff. I nearly needed to be intubated when I was 15. That's just from bronchitis. Yeah. That type of stuff can really mess you up even long term.
So do you wish people would be more consistent in wearing protection and being protective, or do you wish people?
I wish they'd have an element of common sense. I'm not saying trust the science. Science isn't about trust, but do your own investigation. Right. That doesn't mean going by wingnut conspiracy theories.
Right, I agree with you. Right. Are you more conservative or liberal, Fort Walton Bleach?
I like to see I have more of an independent mind. If you're to best classify me, I think I follow along the lines of a libertarian socialist.
Okay, libertarian. And yet, as a libertarian, you're in favor of a mask mandate.
I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily in favor of it, but how about this? If you're going to have masks, that should be the only way that you get any type of compensation. If you're violating the rules, why should you have any money?
Listen, that's a great suggestion.
But they're not going to do it.
Right. And I hope you do stay safe. I'm sorry about your underlying lung condition,
Oh, I'm fine. I'm sorry about the people around me.
Well, hopefully you don't get COVID. I'm going to let you go. We'll have you back on again.
Sure.
But I appreciate you giving an honest perspective on it. And just to be fair, so before I let you go, it sounds like you're an independent. You're not picking a side on this one way or the other, but you'd like people to follow the rules and use common sense at the same time.
You can't have one side or another. That's the major problem that we're having in this country. It's either you're all one way or you're all another way. No. I encourage people to think.
Yep, we don't know how to find a common ground anymore, and it's messing us all up. But that's why I'm pointing out you're an independent. You have an underlying condition, and yet at the same time, you seem to be in favor of letting people at least open things up and letting businesses kind of get back to work. Is that accurate?
Well, you can get back to work. You can be safer than ever. You can increase your stuff. Jeff Bezos didn't have a problem with this at all. You can actually be safer if you have an innovative system going on. There's a lot of institutions, you're getting to see how weak they really are because this thing hit. And they're blaming the virus when this was an underlying problem from a long time ago. If it wasn't this, it would have been something else.
I agree with you. Thanks for Walton Bleach. Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
And more of you guys are welcome to jump on and call in. We're going to have audio calling in, so you don't even have to come on camera. So I appreciate that interactivity. Let me go here where I want to take this about schools. Because, again, I'm not trying to throw unions under the bus. I'm not. I have a problem with big school unions. They lock down. They hold out. You've seen it in Chicago. You see it in Baltimore. You see them resisting opening up unless everybody's vaccinated. And it doesn't work that way. Like, you got to play part of the team. We need to make it safe, but you can go back to school and teach. It's a safe environment. We can do it in a safe way. And again, I feel like it's never putting the students' interest first. And by the way, I worked in a big public school district, Los Angeles, and I worked with the public school system, and I created an advisory board for an innovative public school. It was a public charter, but it's a public school. It's not a charter. It's run by the city, and it's part of the public school system. And we ran into problems, and the teachers were all union teachers. We couldn't get the principal we wanted in because they wanted someone higher in seniority, and that wasn't the right fit. And we had to go around everything, and I'll be completely honest. One of the problems teachers and administrators who are big union people said is the unions and the bureaucracy are so bloated. We wanted to put new computers in the school, and we couldn't. Why not? Because we had to do it through a system that required procurement within the network of everything, and it made it 4 times more expensive than if I tried to just go get it in a separate path, and he couldn't do it. So my issue is these large bureaucratic unions hold back progress, hold back young people from getting their progress. And they're not necessarily working in the best interest of students. I'm not throwing individual teachers under the bus here, by the way. I'm saying these big, powerful unions that stand in the way of that, which leads me to where I kind of want to go with the whole issue around schools. Because, you know, there's a kid in Baltimore. It came up as part of this whole thing where this is one story. But he failed all but 3 classes. All but 3. He failed 22 classes, missed 272 days of school in his first 3 years. His mother works 3 jobs, has 3 kids, thought he was doing okay. Now, she could take some responsibility here, but thought he was doing okay because they kept passing him. He failed Algebra 1. He failed Spanish 1. He goes to Algebra 2. He goes to Spanish 2. She's like, I didn't know he was failing everything. He's in the mid-range of his school. Of 120 students, he's ranked 64th, and he's failed almost everything. I mean, that's a failing school system. There's some great school systems, but the 2,000 worst high schools in America account for 60% of all the dropouts. And they're what they call dropout factories. Kids come in, they go out. It's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. And they're almost all big urban school districts, as well as some rural school districts that are big, but they're mostly big urban ones. And my problem is they're not working. We're not taking care of the poorest kids. We're not taking care of, they're underserved. You know, I just did a town hall in Jacksonville, and we talked about schools with kids from across the city. The lack of infrastructure, the lack of resources, the lack of investment in these schools is incredible. Kids still don't have good books in a lot of schools. So my point is, I don't want to just attack teachers' unions, but they're not moving the ball forward on that more than they're protecting their own interests. But here's the underlying issue. Why are we so afraid to innovate? Again, before you think I'm conservative, I'm going to say I think school choice makes sense, but I think privatizing schools makes sense. And you go, no, that'd be horrible. Be horrible. We can't privatize public schools. Make it commercial, make it for money, but think about it. We privatize just about everything. I mean, if you have to send a letter, do you send it through the U.S. Post Service, or do you send it FedEx? If it's really important, or UPS, if it's vital, and you know, you pick the private option almost every time. If you can afford it, you get the best private health care there is. If you can't, you're on state-assisted health care. I'm not saying the state doesn't play a role, but when it comes to actually opening ourselves up and going, what would the downside be of letting there be more school choice, of letting there be more privatization of schools and setting floors and setting standards and holding them accountable? Yeah, so some people will profit. Could we do any worse than we're doing in our big urban school districts? Think about it. Could we actually do worse than having kids without books, kids who can fail all but 3 of their courses and still rank in the middle of their class? Kids, you know, who are dropping out in big, you know, LA has like a 50% dropout rate when you look at the real numbers. Could we do any worse in providing a privatized or a more school choice model that allowed more private sector, you know, investment into creating schools and regulating the hell out of them, managing them, overseeing them? Why does that scare people so much, particularly on the left? Now, I get why it scares teachers' unions, because they're afraid their union power will shrink. But if you're honestly in favor of giving kids the best education in the world, look, rich, white, power kids of any color are going to always do better than poor kids. You know, I remember when I was working in the Clinton White House, Chelsea Clinton didn't go to a public school. She went to the best private school in Washington, just like Obama's kids did. The rich will always come out ahead. But that doesn't mean you can't create a better floor for those who aren't. And right now the floor is so far down, it's abysmal. And the public school systems aren't able to lift that floor up. So we got to open our minds up and find some more innovative ways. And that does include some privatization to lift the floor up for everybody. Because right now we're screwing a whole generation of kids. And she's right, the LA USD, union head. I don't agree it's propagating racism, but she's right. Minority communities are going to get screwed more. They always do. So are we ready to make some different choices? Are we ready to put our politics aside, left, right, or center, if you're on either side, and find some innovative ways to bring the public and the private together and make schools work for all kids? I'm Rob Nelson. Thanks for watching.